the two companies' best position to capitalize on that. And plus, you have limited downside to estimates.
James, hang on for a second. We've got some big breaking news now out of Google. Google announcing that Sundar Pichai, who's been running day-to-day operations at Google now for a very long time, for CEO Larry Page, will become CEO of Google. Larry Page will go on to be the CEO of Alphabet Inc. Sergey Brin will be the other co-founder of Google, will become president of Alphabet Inc. We're still digesting this news now, but I want to bring in David Kirkpatrick on this. David, obviously, you covered Google for a very, very long time. Now we're seeing that the co-founders of Google are moving on, so to speak. We're still trying to find out a little bit more what this Alphabet Inc. actually means, but not a surprise that Sundar coming on to lead all of Google. What do you make of this news?
Well, he's a great veteran who really understands the business inside out and has been there a long time, but I'm taken aback, as I think you must be. What the heck is Alphabet Inc.? I do not know. I think that, actually, Larry's done a really good job to, I think, rebuild confidence in a lot of pieces of Google. I think the stock market has not totally bought into every bit of it. And his health has been a challenge pretty much the entire time he's been CEO, so I think that might be a factor for him. But, I mean, Google is a machine that will continue powering forward, and I know that Sergey and Larry will remain involved. That's a given. So I don't think you're going to lose their intellectual capital, so to speak.
Right. David, I'm reading now from the press release, Larry saying, what is Alphabet? Well, here it is. Alphabet is mostly a collection of companies, the largest of which, of course, is Google. This newer Google is a bit slimmed down, with the companies that are pretty far afield of our main internet products contained in Alphabet instead. What do we mean by far afield? Well, good examples are our health efforts, life sciences, Calico, which of course we know is focused on longevity. Fundamentally, we believe this allows us more management scale as we run things independently that aren't very related. So huge shakeup in the operating structure in general at Google. David, what's your reaction?
Well, it sounds to me like Alphabet Inc. in some ways is a new name for what we previously called Google, which was, we always knew, aside from a massive profit-generating, search advertising engine, a lot of interesting but not hugely profitable or even profitable at all entities like, their work in the cars and the glass failed effort, etc. So maybe they're folding all that into this bigger entity in order to emphasize that, it doesn't really affect their ability to be a monster search-based ad engine, but they're also going to do this other stuff. But presumably, the shareholders of Google are now shareholders of Alphabet Inc., I would assume.
Larry Page adding in this memo, a key part of this is Sundar Pichai, who has been saying the things that I would have said, and sometimes better, for quite some time now, and I've been tremendously enjoying our work together. Sundar, of course, has stepped up tremendously since Larry gave him the reins to run a lot of things at Google. Sarah, what do you make of this news, as obviously someone who covers Silicon Valley and has been following Google now for many years?
I think it's very interesting that we're seeing one of the top people at a company that is founder-led getting elevated to a CEO position. That's something that people have said wouldn't happen at Google, that it wouldn't happen at a place like Facebook. Sundar Pichai, of course, has been recruited by companies like Twitter in the past and used that to get more power at Google. Finally, they're sort of recognizing that he's at the point where he could run the whole thing.
So, David, what do you make of this? There's been criticism of how Larry Page and Sergey Brin have run this company, that they've been spending too much time and energy on moonshots and not focusing enough on the core business. And the core business has really changed as Google has matured, and Google has potentially ceded a lot of territory, especially when it comes to mobile advertising, to Facebook. Is this a recognition that some of that may not have been going so well, and that they really do need a dramatic change to keep Google moving forward in its core business?
Well, I think you can speculate about a lot of stuff, but I will say, in general, in today's business environment, focusing too much on your core business can be fatal. Business changes too fast. I admire Google tremendously for having seeded all these other efforts. none of which really are having any kind of meaningful contribution to the bottom line. Of course, YouTube, which they acquired, is a huge factor in their business. But obviously, they are challenged by Facebook's increasingly powerful ad business and its incredible targetability, the successful move to mobile. That poses a big long-term challenge to them. I do think they're smart to be building these other businesses, however.
It's so interesting, though, David, isn't it? This after Google just blew out earnings and added like 20% to its market cap after that first historic call with Ruth Porat, the new CFO at Google. I'm reading more from Larry Page's memo on this, and he closes by saying, we're excited about getting more ambitious things done, taking the long-term view, empowering great entrepreneurs and companies to flourish, investing at the scale of the opportunities and resources that we see, improving the transparency and oversight of what we're doing, making Google even better through greater focus, and hopefully as a result of all this, improving the lives of as many people as we can. Well, that all sounds great, but competition for Google in its core business, which is advertising, is stiffer and stiffer when it comes to Facebook. Obviously, we have Twitter eating away at things, and there's still a lot of questions, Sarah, whether these moonshots are going to amount to anything.
Absolutely, but to your point, this is the time to make this kind of move. When your company is doing well, had a great quarter, that's when you make these big dramatic changes that otherwise might spook investors or be a sign of defeat, right? Google's not coming out and doing this after being clobbered. They're coming out and doing this while they're riding high, while their stock has been on the increase. And so, maybe this is when they can get away with it, and it is showing commitment to this core business in a different way.
And just to recap, Larry Page becoming CEO of Alphabet Inc., Sergey Brin becoming president of Alphabet Inc. Alphabet Inc. is a collection of companies, including Google. Sundar Pichai, longtime Googler who's been running Google, the day-to-day operations now for a very long time, will become CEO of Google. David, as someone who's covered Facebook as well for a very, very long time, what are you going to be watching for in this new world of Alphabet that has been Google for so long?
I just am still trying to digest it, but I'm just reminded the other night I was at a dinner party and somebody was interrogating me, why does Google do Google Maps? And I was thinking, it does take some explaining what their ecosystem is, but ultimately most things they've been doing have really tried to drive you back ultimately to their service in order for you to see more advertising, and I think Maps would be said to be one of those. On the other hand, the new stuff like the car, the pharmaceutical, the life extension products, those don't do that, so maybe there is a real logic for a holding company model. It's an extraordinary company that I think all of us would have to admit is possibly the most earth-shakingly significant, world-changing business that we, feel the influence of every day in our lives. And, we can't help watching this with incredible fascination. And
I love that word, earth-shaking. Earth-shaking, David, as we've been trying to digest this news live on the air. Again, Google changing its corporate structure to separate search, YouTube, and other web companies from its research and investment divisions, divisions like Google X, which will also be part of the new Alphabet company, Google Inc., Calico, Google Ventures, Google Capital. I want to bring in James Kochmock of Monness, Crespi & Hart, who was with us earlier talking about Twitter. James, you also happen to cover Google. What do you make of this news?
I think it makes total sense. I mean, they've been telegraphing that Sundar has been increasingly going to be taking a bigger and bigger role at Google. And really, we see Google relatively disadvantaged in mobile relative to the five horsemen, we call it: Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and Twitter. Those are the companies that are optimized for mobile. And having a guy like Sundar come on board, very operationally focused, product focused, and removing that from the moonshots, I think is certainly a good thing. So,
okay, but what about all the moonshots? What about all the moonshots? What sort of standards will they be held to from a Wall Street perspective?
Yeah, the moonshots I think are fine as long as the core business is optimized for the future. The future is about mobile and the future is about native. Unless the only asset that Google has really that can capitalize on that seismic shift is YouTube. And YouTube is doing fine and dandy and everything, but in the meantime, you have Facebook breathing down your neck and doing so in a very curated fashion where you're getting the right videos in front of the right users at the right time to engage. That's something YouTube doesn't really have. So I think a guy like Sundar can bring focus, much needed focus into the company that wasn't there before.
Larry Page writing, we've long believed that over time companies tend to get comfortable doing the same thing, just making incremental changes. Our company is operating well today, but we think we can make it cleaner and more accountable. David, I'll leave it to you for closing thoughts. We only have about 60 seconds more in the show.
Referring to your earlier guest, they don't want to be seen as super evil megacorp, which I think some of they have been. And it could be that this will put more of a spotlight on some of these really interesting other activities without allowing them to be a distraction from their true massive profit-generating machine. So, you know, I always look at these people with fascination, and I will continue. I think they're an amazing company, brilliantly led, and they will continue to be.
Google, whose motto has been, don't be evil, now becoming, going under the name Alphabet, a major shakeup to Google's corporate structure. We'll continue to cover this, of course, tomorrow and throughout the day on Bloomberg Television. Thanks so much for joining us on Bloomberg West. We'll see you later.